So empowered players and help them become problem solvers on the court themselves?
Well, that's the big part of it, because, you know, instead of having to call somebody's play, they learn to read the defenses, and learning to read a defense is very important. And, you know, one of the things about this offense, when I proposed it to Michael, this is a private meeting, after I was named as head coach, Michael said, "Oh, that equal opportunity offense, right, that Tex likes?" And I said, "I guess you could call it equal opportunity. But I bet you're going to get more shots than anybody else in the process." He said, "What are you going to do when the ball gets in Bill Cartwright's hands and there's 5 seconds or less on the 24-second clock?" I said, "We'll teach them how to get the ball to you real quickly." So that became his worry, and I don't think it was ever a problem for us.
I think we're going to move on to the audience participatory time. I didn't get to stroll down Bulls memory lane, but I might splice a few in. Actually, this will take us there right here. Reed from Playa del Rey. How about that?
Okay.
Can you think of a more spectacular MJ game than the one he played against the Jazz in '97 when he was so sick he could barely walk? You write about that in the book. That moment.
Yeah, that was a great game. There was, you know, I did a benefit for a group called OMAZE, OMAZE. It's kind of a charity organization, and what you do is you bring them, or these people that want to be part of this charity, into your kitchen, so to speak. Like Magic had them play one-on-one or two-on-two on a basketball court, and other people that were celebrities had lunch with them or whatever. And I took them through some DVDs of some of the special games. One of them, we played a final game against the Cleveland Cavaliers in, I think it was '93, and they were in the Eastern Finals, and, you know, Michael had a very good first half, and all of a sudden Scotty got hot, and we had it featured, you know, that we should take advantage of Scotty's, you know, opponent who was guarding him. And he got 16 points in the third quarter and into the fourth. And Michael sat behind that and didn't force his offense at all. But then Scotty had fouled a couple times. He missed a couple foul shots. And he started to dry up a little bit. And Michael, you know, had to get active in the game. His shot wasn't there. But he went to the basket twice. And if there would have been what they call flagrant fouls in those days, they would have ejected both these guys. Nance and Doherty would have been out of the ball game. I mean, they just floored him. He got up and he went to the free throw line and made his free throws. And those two opportunities to make free throws got him his rhythm back, and then he scored the last 11 points of the ball game. Those are the things that, to me, were outstanding about him. That, you know, he was, you know, he didn't have a spectacular shooting game. He had a good shooting game. He didn't have, you know, 40 points. But he made those points down the stretch to close out a series and took it on, head on, and was dauntless. He was fearless, and he went to the teeth of the opponent, and he won. And that was the thing that made him great.
This one comes anonymously, and it'll actually tie into something that somebody said I had to ask you, because people want to get into Bulls versus Lakers, 6 titles versus 5 titles. I'm sure it's like asking you to compare your children to 11 championships. But you do call the Game 7 victory in 2010 when the Lakers beat the Celtics at the Forum. I'm sorry, at the Staples Center, the most gratifying victory of your career. But then you also devote a whole segment to the classic 95-96 Bulls team that won an NBA record 72 games. So. Long-winded way of getting to an anonymous question. Favorite game you ever coached?
Oh, man. I guess it would be the first championship game, the final game that helped us win that first championship, you know, where it wasn't going easy. We had a lead. We were continually in the lead. They kept in the ball game. You know, there got to be a point in the game where they just were closing the lane on Michael all the time. And I had to call a timeout, and in the timeout I had to ask Michael who was open. They're closing the lane down. You're not going to be able to get into the lane. And he said, Paxson's open. And at that point, he fed John consecutive times for him to hit jump shots that closed the game out for us, and that was the demonstration. The other game that comes to mind immediately is the '93 championship with the Phoenix Suns, in which at the end of the ball game, every player touches the ball in an automatic that we call the blind pig, which I don't know where it comes from, that term, by the way. But we ran the blind pig from the back court, and everybody's on the floor: B.J. Armstrong, Michael, Scotty, Horace Grant, and eventually it ends up in John Paxson's hands, and he hits a three-point shot for us to win the first three-point sequence. That was a very gratifying game.
John did a few clutch shots in his career.
Yes, he did.
This comes from Niall G. Phil, which players actually read the books?
I usually buy books appropriate for players. Beavis and Butthead is one of the books I gave Stacey King. He's a humorist at his heart, Stacey is. I got Dennis a book on motorcycles, a picture book at that. Shaq called himself the big philosopher, the Aristotle, and so I got him philosophy books. And then the one that I think captures my, every time I think about it, I have to laugh. We were playing here in Chicago, and Brad Miller got into a fracas with Shaq. He had fouled him hard, maybe 2 or 3 times, every time he got the ball. I had clubbed him across the head one time, and Shaq took offense to it and was ejected for his next action, which he went after Brad. And he went into the locker room, showered, got on the bus, read the book, or finished the book, got on the plane. We were flying back to LA, and in the middle of the flight, he taps me on the shoulder and hands me his book report. I always kidded him about it. I want a book report on this book. The book I'd given him was Steppenwolf by Herman Hesse, and he said, "This guy is just like me. He's rich, he's famous, and he's really sexy."
Did you give him an A? If I'm mispronouncing this, I apologize. Bob Hoyler or Hoylin. What's your opinion of current Chicago Bulls coach Tom Thibodeau?
Tom's a good coach. He really does a great job with this, Dave. He works really hard at it. I hope it doesn't kill him. That's all I can say. It's just, he really works hard at it.
I got to splice in one more of my own real quickly. We didn't get to Dennis Rodman except for my opening crack. About midway through the book, you write, on some level, I told the other coaches that Dennis reminded me of me. Huh?
Well, I took a different course than most of my players, my teammates, and not the same way that Dennis went off to the extreme ends, but I was always doing things that were quite different. I was a unique person in New York City, living in a time when there was a lot of political unrest in our country, and I often would be over there at the other end of the spectrum. Sometimes we didn't have shoot-arounds, so I could go visit Berkeley at in the 70s, late 60s, when we had a game in Oakland, or I could do something that was unusual in the daytime before our ball games because of the freedom that we had at that time. And it allowed me a lot of opportunities to do things that I thought were unique and interesting. And I thought Dennis was always, pressing the envelope to do something that he wanted to do that was unique and interesting.